Hi everyone, and welcome to Tuesdays with Tova, where I try to help you understand your teens better and give you some useful tips and knowledge that will help you do a better job at supporting your teens in today's world. Not only that regular world that we grew up in as teenagers, but specifically in the digital world that our teens live in today. And what I want to spend our time on today is talking about the long old question of why do our teens make so many stupid mistakes? Don't they know better? Right? We teach them, we tell them, we talk to them, and still they seem to make mistakes all the time. Now, this was always the case. It was the case when we were teens. It's true for our teens today. Why on earth does this happen? And it's especially frustrating to parents that I talk to who spend a lot of time and investment in really making sure that their teens are clear on their family values, they're clear on boundaries. You know, they've done all the right things, and yet their teens still seem to be making really stupid mistakes. So one of the things that prompted me really to talk about this today was a call that I got a few weeks ago from a wonderful mom who was calling to talk to me about her son. She was really frustrated. They were away on a weekend he's part of a soccer team, so they had gone away for a tournament, and at night, all the parents went out for dinner, and the boys were like, oh, we're gonna go hang out in the park, we'll be back soon. And they indeed went out to hang out in the park, and in the process got drunk. And of course they were all staying in hotel rooms together. And she's like, did he not think that I was gonna smell the alcohol in his breath, that I wasn't gonna notice that he had a few drinks before he came back? I mean, does he not realize the consequences, that most likely he's gonna get kicked off the team if anybody finds out? Like, why is this even happening? Like, this isn't new to him. He knows what the rules are. He knows what the expectations are. We were right there. Why? Basically was her question. And so what I want to talk to you about tonight is to try to help you figure out and understand why. Why is this even happening? Why are your teens, even though we think that they should know better and we feel like they should know better, seems like they don't actually know better? And so what I want to share with you, sorry, just clicking to see, and hi to those who are online, feel free to just say hello or give me a heart or another emoji. Just tell me how you're feeling or how you're feeling about the topic that we're talking about today. Is this relevant to you? So what we're going to talk about is what is actually going on in our teen's brain. Why is this happening? Why are you in a situation where even though you do what you're supposed to be doing, right, and you lay out the ground rules and they're clear on what the story is, why are you still in a situation where your teens are making stupid mistakes? So we're going to talk today a little bit about the science, and if you bear with me and join me next week, I have a special offer for you where we're actually going to talk about what you can do about it, even though what I'm going to tell you right now is that this is all based on what's going on in their brain. So even though this is scientific, even though this is about what's going on in their brain and developmental and totally normal, there are still many things that not only can you do, but you should do and are important that you do to help your teens learn how to both learn from their mistakes and not make more mistakes moving forward. So what is going on, right? Why does this happen? And well, you know what? I'll tell you a story about myself a little bit later. So basically what's happening is that, as you already know, and if you don't, you should look back at some of my other videos, your teens are in a time in life where they are growing and every part of them is growing, right? As they become teenagers, their hormones are changing. Their whole developmental process is completely different. And part of the process that is going on is actually what's going on in their brain. So when they are little kids, they get this burst of growth in their brain, and then starts this process of pruning, which happens again, we've discovered, when they're teenagers, the same process, right? So their brain is actually growing and then deciding what to do. And that's actually really important, and we'll get back to that in a moment. But what happens is that there are two main parts that we're going to talk about today, the amygdala and then the frontal lobe. And they're responsible for two different things. The amygdala actually develops faster, and that's the part of the brain that is more risk averse. It's the one that's responsible for our fight or flight. It is the one that is in charge of aggressive behavior or responding emotionally to what's going on, which as we know, as our teens are going through puberty, their hormones are raging and going crazy, that is something that is going on for them intensely, right? So they're feeling emotions intensely, and this part of the brain is encouraging them to express that, right? And to follow those emotions and follow those actions. The other part is the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is actually that part of our brain which helps us figure out right and wrong. It helps us take a breather for a moment and say, is what just happened, is this the right decision for me, or is this the wrong decision for me? It allows them to really learn how to take that thought process and implement it, right? And kind of balance between the amygdala and the frontal lobe, between my need to, immediately right now say yes to my friends and go drinking, to that part of the brain that's going to say, wait a second, I'm with my parents at a hotel and we're in a soccer tournament. Is this a good choice, right? Is this the right choice for me or not? So these two parts of the brain are fighting, in a way, if you'd like to describe it that way, between themselves. And the amygdala develops quicker and faster, but that frontal lobe is going to be developing way into their teens. So it's going to be a while before their brain is actually in a place where those two pieces balance themselves out. And that is part of the reason that what you're seeing that your teens, even though when they are calm and they're relaxed and their amygdala is not being triggered and heightened, they actually know right from wrong. They can identify whether this would be a good choice or not. But in the heat of the moment, when the hormones are rushing and the emotions are high, they're making a stupid mistake. So you might be asking yourself and saying, well, then what can I do, right? What's the point? So if they're controlled by their amygdala, then there's nothing that I can do. But that's not actually true. There's a lot that you can do, and it's actually particularly important that you do things. And why is it so important? It's so important because remember that burst that I talked about at the beginning of conversation, where there's this new burst and growth in the brain? Well, what happens is that there's this burst, and then what happens is it starts pruning back, okay? And what is that pruning back process? Basically, use it or lose it. That's the way it works. The parts of our brain that we stimulate, that we encourage, that we work with, are the ones that are going to stay with us or with your teens then for the rest of their lives. So if they spend time during this time only on electronics and on video games, etc., that's the way their brain is going to be rewired. Okay, it's going to be wired for instant gratification. It's going to be wired for need for immediate results. It is going to crave that need and focus and insanity that happens in the brain when they are connected to technology. It's going to affect how I don't know why the word just ran away from me. How addicted, they are to technology later on in life. So for us as adults, I just want to make this clear. For us as adults, if we as technology was introduced to us, once this part of our brain was already developed, it's not that we can't become addicted to technology, but it's a very different process because our brain is already settled, it's already set in a certain place. For teens, that is still happening. So if that's a process that's still growing. And so therefore, if there's on so much technology during this time, that's how their brain becomes rewired and set, and that is becomes a need that is very hard to let go of afterwards. Okay, that's also part of the challenge of why when teens start using drugs or alcohol when they're teenagers, or start smoking when they're teenagers, it's so much harder to quit later. But in any case, part of what that means is that the skills that you teach, right, during this time, whether they are spending their time doing productive things for the family, productive things for society, or whether they're sitting in the room doing nothing, is actually going to have a huge impact on the rest of their lives. Okay, because these parts of the brain, again, if you use it, they will grow. If you encourage them to use their abilities for kindness and for good, and for contribution to others, and grow that empathy and grow their understanding of where they are as part of a society, that is going to be a part of their brain that is set in for the rest of their lives. If you allow them, right, to just be obnoxious, ignore other people, be mean, spend their time on their phone. And I know that there's no absolutes here, okay? And these things will come out when they're teenagers and they're normal, but if you don't call them on it, if you don't help them see the impact of the choices that they're making and help them come back on track, those are the things that are going to be set into their brain. So it is particularly important that you invest time in helping them learn how to make good decisions. Good decisions for themselves. And we can do that in small ways. We can do that in big ways. We can do it in ways that are more practical, allowing them to sit down and really analyze the choices that they've made and the consequences. We can do it by talking about things in advance. And that's why I've actually prepared for you a whole training on this. But for that, you're going to have to wait for next week when I make a special announcement. You're going to make sure you don't want to miss it because it's going to be a limited time offer for you to really join this training. And we'll talk then about what you can practically do to make a difference in your teen's life. How do you help them step out of this natural yet crazy mode of need to really want to engage in risky behavior, want to do the crazy thing, or just kind of move with their emotions and let their emotions lead their decision making versus the logic, the understanding of what is right and what is wrong. No matter what you do, okay, your teens will make mistakes. They will make the wrong choice. It's part of being a teenager and it's okay. It doesn't mean anything about you being a bad parent. Let go of that thought, please. All it means is that they are learning. And what I want you to be able to do is have the tools to be able to be there and support them through that process. Now, one of the things I wanted to share with you is what can happen if you actually do help your teens, right? So I was lucky enough to grow up in a home where consequences and understandings of the results of your actions was a natural part of the way I grew up. I have parents who are both educators. That's the way we grew up. That was the conversation that we had at home. And what did that lead to? So when I was 16, not that long after I had gotten my license, my parents were kind enough to lend me our amazing car, and they would let me use the car occasionally when I would go out with friends, which I felt very lucky because most of my friends' parents would not let them do that. And we were hanging out. I don't remember what we were doing, but we were doing something with the Scouts, and afterwards we were meeting up with some boys, which one of them also came with a car. So we were a bunch of girls with a car, and they were a bunch of guys with a car. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to play car tag. Now, if you've never played car tag before, it's really quite simple. It's kind of like what it sounds like. It's two cars, one's in the front, one's in the back, and the car in the back needs to tag the car in the front, and that's when you win and switch places and switch around. And we were in this long stretch, and they wanted to play car tag. And well, I was 16. I really liked one of the boys in the other car. I wanted him to like me back. And I kind of had a split decision to make a decision where, well, was I going to say yes or what was I going to say no, which is really the life that your teens are living, right? They have to make decisions in a split decision. They don't have time to sit and, do pros and cons and think about it. They got to make a decision right away. And there I was thinking, okay, option number one, I'm going to say yes. This boy is going to like me, or hopefully he's going to like me and think good things about me, and I will, become more popular in his eyes. Option number two is I say no. And how do I make a choice? And because I had been trained by my parents to think about this and really sit with this, in that split moment, my brain was able to say, well, if I say yes, he's going to like me. He's going to like me. But if I say yes, there's also a strong possibility that I'm actually going to ding my parents' car or get in some kind of car accident. And then what will happen? My parents will never give me the car again. Now, whether it's true that my parents would have never given me the car again or not doesn't really matter. But in my teen mind, that was an absolute, right? If I do indeed get into a car accident or hurt the car in any kind of way, then that's it. That's the end of my driving career. And I was not willing to risk the end of my driving career. And so I said no. Now, it took a lot of courage for me to say no in that moment, but I was able to do it because of all the pre-work that my parents did in advance. And that's why I want you to be able to have the tools to be able to do this pre-work with your teens. So first of all, if you're with me, feel free to say hi if this makes sense to you. If you remember a story of yourself when you were a teen and had to make a big decision, feel free to share it in the comments. I would love to hear whether you're listening now or you're listening later on the replay. And what's sad actually is that just a couple of months later, one of the boys who was part of that group wrapped his car around a tree and got seriously injured by playing the same game, and then spent the next couple of years in rehab on crutches, on a cane, for a young, fit, great guy. Totally changed the course of his life for many, many reasons. But I was able to make that choice in that moment. And what my goal is, and in the training that I'm going to be offering you next week, is to be able to give you some tools to help your teens go through that process of learning how to think about the choices that they're making and help train that frontal lobe to move just a little bit quicker in its development, right? And have that moment where even if they make a choice which isn't a good choice, they're going to be using their gut and their intuition to be like, wait a second, is this really the right choice for me? But also they're going to have this thought process that you help them and work with them on either before things happen or after they've already made the mistake, to help them learn from their experience and do better the next time. So I hope if this was helpful. If it was, feel free to share the love and share with other people. If you have any questions or comments, whether it's now live or later on, feel free to write them in the comments below. Always great with being with you on Tuesdays with Tova, and I look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday. Bye!